Excellent. So, hello everyone. Great to see you all, our dear Spider Project participants, and uh, also hello to all who come and join for this session. My name is Miloslav Klugar, and I'm uh, actually the coordinator of the Spider Erasmus Plus project. The Spider stands for Strategic Partnership in Innovation and Development of Evidence-Based Healthcare. And thank you, our colleagues from the GBI Spanish team, for invitation and organizing this conference and the multiplier event of the Spider project. For my disclosures, I don't have any direct financial conflict of interest. However, I have a few, let's say, intellectual conflicts of interest, and from the fact that I'm director of the Czech JBI Center, Czech Cochrane Center, Great Center of Masaryk University, member of Cochrane Advisory Board for Evidence Advocacy, member of Great GBI Adelaide Center, head methodologist of Czech Health Research Council, Ministry of Health for a National Guideline Project, member of several method groups of Cochrane, JBI, GREAT, and GIN, chairman of Czech Medical Association for Hyperbaric Innovation Medicine, and chair of Working Group 2 and member of core group of FBRES European Cost Action. The Spider project, here actually we have our dear fellow colleagues from other GBI centers from Portugal, Romania, Spain, and Wales. And our dear colleagues and
Trebuia să intru pe
Jitka Klugarová, Judith Carrier, Jean Apostol, Teresa Marino Kasbas, Maite, and Carmen Mazilu. So here are the names of the project partners, centers and universities. And Spider project actually was planned to be ended quite soon, let's say in August 2021. However, due to the COVID-19, we decided to postpone the project because there were some significant delays, especially from our clinical teams and participants who were not able to actually develop their projects within the departments, as they were very restricted due to the pandemic. So the project will be extended till August 2022. Overarching project goals: there is a development of collaboration between European evidence-based healthcare centers. Also, the aim was a dissemination and implementation of evidence-based healthcare principles via education, exchange of innovative methodological approaches in healthcare, which is the evidence implementation and unique GBI evidence implementation course. And there are several multiplier events planned. The first was about to be held in the Czech Republic, and it was postponed to 2022. And this one was planned to be held in Spain, but it's online and not face-to-face. So I'm sorry about that, because I would very glad to be in Spain and see you all face-to-face. However, this is also good to see you at least online within this multiplier event. So the main project outcomes, there is actually the target group are physicians and allied healthcare professionals, and all of them, total 24 participants, they should develop 24 best practice implementation projects and receive the training within the clinical GBI clinical fellowship program. Additional outputs is actually search and critical evaluate systematic use and guidelines, overcoming barriers to implementation of the evidence, data collection for clinical audit, and the difference between research and hospital practice. This is something what we decided to develop additionally because as the project was a little bit delayed by COVID-19 and also interfered that we planned a lot of face-to-face meetings. They were in the end, they were not able to be actually realized. So we have some extra money, and we thought it would be wise to use this extra money to develop some more outputs. So that's what we decided to do within the project team. So for the outline, key objectives, we are looking to decrease the gap between research and practice in healthcare and support international collaboration of professionals in healthcare. And I have to say that based on the experience of the first, second, and the third training we received, it is actually great to have such diverse international group, because actually the participants who were within the training They were sharing their experience from their countries, and it was a huge additional value which we never experienced when we were running this education projects, let's say within the country nationally, only with the Czech colleagues. So this was a great added value, and I can only recommend to do it internationally, because that was I think one of the best outcomes we can observe so far. This is the original plan for the training, and as you can see, due to the COVID-19, we postponed some of these activities. So the last part for the C4 activity, the last training will be held during the September for 12 participants. And we are following, as I mentioned, the unique JBI clinical fellowship program, which is in line with the JBI implementation and, let's say, evidence-based healthcare model, which we can see going through the evidence generation, synthesis, implementation. And within the implementation, important parts for it, it's the aim for organizational change of practice, evaluation of the practice. We are developing and performing the clinical audit, identifying what are the barriers and developing strategies to overcome them, through leadership, trying to identify what's the culture context, possible conflicts, and looking for the solutions within the workplace to be able to develop the implementation and make the change in the practice. For this, we are using the PACES and GRIP softwares, currently actually under further development and innovation within the JBI. However, we're looking forward when they are done and finished. Outcomes of the project, there are several outcomes. The most important ones, the 24 best practice implementation projects, which are planned to be published within the scientific journal, and few multiplier events. We were hoping actually to host the multiplier events alongside the Global Evidence Summit, which we actually got for the Czech Republic for 2021. However, again, it was postponed to 2023, but I hope that in 2023, I will welcome you all face-to-face in Prague, and we will be able to go together again for some wine and beer and have some fun with all together. So regarding the implementation projects for the Czech team, these are the colleagues who are involved within the projects, and you can see their topics. The several of these topics are actually all of them. They are presented as within this session as a posters. So I can also invite you to see the posters and learn a little bit more about the concrete implementation projects. Here are colleagues from Portugal, and also you will hear several presentations today, and there are also the projects within the posters presented, the colleagues from Romania and their topics, the similar way here. And last but not least, the colleagues from Spain, and sorry, one more, the Wales again. So here, colleagues from Wales who are also here with us and will present their projects today. So also one of the important outcome project is dissemination. So there will be, as I said, a publication, but also publish the book. There are the multiplier events. This event is streamed online and it's recorded. So this is another strategy for dissemination. And also within the university, we already held several small events where we are presenting the projects, their outcomes, and invited our other clinicians to join these activities. So I thank you very much for listening, and let me, for the end, to invite you to the mentioned Global Evidence Summit, which for us in the field of evidence-based healthcare, evidence synthesis, evidence implementation is kind of the Olympic Games, because in normal times, once in the 4 years, all of these big players on the field of evidence-based healthcare, Cochrane, JBI, Jim, Campbell, and many others join together and make the symposium. So hope to see you all in Prague, and thank you for listening. Okay, very good. So now I finished my session, and I think we can invite the first presenter within this session, which is our colleague from Masaryk University, Andrea Menšíková, and she will present her implementation project, which is called Perioperative Management of Pressure Injury, a best practice implementation project. So Andrea, the stage is yours. You can share your presentation and start. You have 8 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will try to share my presentation. So, can you see it properly?
Yes.
Yes, so shall I start?
Yes, please.
Dear colleagues, my friends, I'm honored to start with my presentation at this online conference. So let me introduce my project, which concerns best practice implementation of pressure injury prevention during perioperative period. I would like, sorry, I have another. Are you able to see my second slide? Is everything okay? Yeah. So I would like to declare that I have no conflict of interest for this project. This project aimed to audit the level of pressure injury perioperative prevention in a small clinic in Brno in Czech Republic. It's known that pressure injuries are serious and extensive complications easy to prevent. So we tried to identify the potential risks of pressure injury prevention during perioperative care in patients who undergone surgery in our clinic. Here you can, sorry, I'm so sorry. Here you can see main aims and objectives. Simply says the overall purpose was to improve local practice, to create surgical checklists, and based on validated scales, which help the staff to assess all potential risk of pressure injuries during perioperative period. The best implementation project has been conducted based on JBI implementation approach. And the first step was baseline audit. A baseline audit involving 27 patients was undertaken and measured against 6 best practice criteria. Here you can see all of them. They were developed by or through JBI PACES program. To collect baseline data, we used 32 item checklist based on commonly worldwide used surgical safety checklist. 3 barriers were identified to overcome, and I will mention them later. A follow-up audit was performed 1 year later with no change in topic or sample size or location of the project. Here you can see the results of baseline audit. There was no compliance with criteria 1, 2, and 6. It means that no validated scales was used to assess the initial risk of pressure injury prevention, that we didn't make any, that no evaluation was documented in patient records prior to surgery, and that the knowledge of staff about pressure injuries were very poor. But there was 100% compliance with body protection from pressure and shearing, but we were using a little bit old-fashioned foaming positioning at when we need to reposition patients during surgery. We marked this change in documentation. Yeah, here are the results. And in these 3 following slides, you can see the barriers we overcame. So the first problem was poor knowledge about pressure injury prevention. So we made some educational sessions, and then all staff confirmed that they felt confident with using new positioning aid. The second problem was absence of validated scale. So after searching for evidence-based templates, we amended the skin assessment to originally use surgical checklist. The last step was to find out financial resources for buying a new equipment. And here you can see the results, either the baseline or follow-up audit. And there were significantly improved outcomes across all best practice criteria. I would like to admit that the main limit of this study was a specific group of patients, because in our clinic, only health women undergone the surgery. They are usually normosthenic. They usually have normosthenic constitution without any associated comorbidities. So it's the limit. But however, we are convinced that even with this client, we need to eliminate the risk of pressure injuries. I think that we fulfilled the aims of our project, and that we improve local practice. We amended our safety surgical checklist, and we started to use a new advanced Gelfield app. And what's the thing we are proud the most is that we consent skin assessment to our checklist. So I would like to thank all staff participating in this study. I would like to thank all members of SPIDER team, and thank you for your kind attention. Maybe I was very quick, but I try to keep my time limit. So if you have any question, please, you can ask.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for your very nice presentation and for coping with the time. That was exactly and excellent. So thank you very much for this. The discussion will be after for panelists all together. So please prepare our audience who attended to prepare their questions, to type it in the chat. And in the meantime, I would like to invite Simona Seibertova to deliver her presentation about the pressure injury prevention, fixation of nutritional and derivative probes, a best practice implementation project. So Simona, please share your slide with us, and the stage is yours. And in my will you do it, just reminding that please type your questions into the chat, and I and my fellow co-moderator Laura will then take the questions. Simona, we don't see the presentation view. We see only the first. So if you can make it presentation view, it will be better.
Já vidím. Tady to vidíš u mě.
Hello, everyone. I would like to introduce you to our project, Pressure Injury Prevention, Fixation of Nutritional and Derivate Probes. Okay. Okay. There is not conflict of interest to declare for this project. Pressure injury remain a common complication of healthcare despite intensive prevention strategies and drawing strategies interest. Medical devices related pressure injuries originated in connection with the nasogastric probe make up 8% of the total number of MDRPIs and are often neglected in a clinical practice. The risk increases with the length of the probe insertion and is higher in patients in intensive care. MDRPI prevention is mostly based on appropriate skin and mucosa membrane care and tissue monitoring and positioning of medical devices.
Sorry, Simona. Sorry, could you please put in presentation full mode? It's better for the participants.
Zmáčkněte F5 a spuste si tu prezentaci tak, aby jsme ji viděli, vidíme, anebo si přehodit to okno, ať vidíme to prezentování, a ne...
Yep.
Tak,
Okay.
to je lepší, ano?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so I'm sorry. The occurrence of MDR-RPI in patients with an established nasogastric probe is conditioned by a combination of risk factors. The main objective of this best practice implementation project was to improve the provision of clinical care in a field of pressure injury prevention related with the use of medical devices focused on nasogastric probes. The project has been conducted based on JBI implementation approach for promoting change in healthcare practice and included 3 phases: baseline audit, a grip, and follow-up audit. In the baseline audit, there were defined 7 criteria available in JBI. The implementation project was carried out on long-term intensive care unit in a private hospital in Brno in the Czech Republic. The baseline audit included 21 nurses and 12 patients, and follow-up audit included 21 nurses and 16 patients. The baseline audit identified deficiencies in the knowledge of the nurses, as well as in the using preventive measures for MDRPI in the patient with nasogastric probe. You can see on the graph. In order to overcome identified barriers, such as the traditional approaches in a nursing intervention, lack of staff for the MDRPI prevention, and the underestimation of the seriousness of the problem of physicians and other members of the multidisciplinary team. Strategies have been determined, and implementation intervention including education, clinical practice training, consultation, and other strategies. There were significantly improved outcomes across all best practice criteria in the follow-up audit. The level of knowledge of nurses has been increased, you can see on the graph. The proper stuff is used to prevent skin injuries on the nose, for example, skin barriers, creams, and mesh-supplied fixation. The new monitoring process and documentation has been implemented and is more accurate and in accordance with evidence-based practices. The MDRPI are still underestimated problem in the clinical practice. The situation of MDR-PI in relation to the nasogastric probe is even worse, as the potential injured area is relatively small and the risk of systemic infection is low. It must be highlighted that the MDR-PIs on the nose could lead to the mutilating damage with long-term impact on patient quality life. The mucosa membrane pressure injury could influence the possibility to feed the patient and has significant implication for patient overall health. Nurses in our sample were not aware of such serious implications. They used inappropriate skincare products and forcibly removed the probe fixation. The situation improved when the project completed. Overall, the project achieved an improved in evidence-based practice in prevention of MDR-PI in patients with nasogastric probe. The knowledge of nurses and usage of appropriate preventive measures increases. The appropriate monitoring has been identified as the most effective in the early recognition of skin injury. Okay. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Simona, for very clear presentation, and congratulations for the results. As I mentioned, the discussion will be after 2 more presentations. So thank you very much for now, and then I will invite you to the panel discussion. And now the next presenter, it's my pleasure to invite Miriam Morlands-Lenau, and with the topic establishing midwife-led continuity of care intervention in high-risk pregnancy, best practice implementation project. So Miriam, the stage is yours.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Miroslav. Hello, everyone. My name is Miriam Morlands, and I work as a midwife in Infanta Leonor University Hospital in Madrid. And my topic is establishing midwife-led continuity of care interventions in high-risk pregnancy. First of all, there is no conflict of interest to declare for this project. And as introduction, I would like to point out the significance of continuity of care in pregnancy, which involves 3 times period: antenatal, intrapartum, and postpartum period. And perinatal mental health disorders such as fear of childbirth, anxiety, or perinatal depression are considered major health issues and are associated with poor maternal and neonatal outcomes. Taking this into account, evidence highlights that women with high-risk pregnancies are considered a group of women with a considerable obstetric and emotional vulnerability, and the value of continuity of care is crucial in this group of women to establish a therapeutic relationship, to promote security, and to enhance emotional well-being. This is why it's so important to coordinate and individualize care to this group of women in clinical practice. My audit question is if it's a coordinated midwifery-led service delivering continuity of care and support improves the mental well-being. And through it, we selected 3 topics to reflect the significance of continuity of care, and were antenatal psychosocial assessment, intrapartum care, and postpartum depression assessment. My main aim for this evidence implementation project was to improve the quality of continuity of care in emotional well-being in a group of women with high-risk pregnancies. And another specific objective was to determine current compliance, to improve knowledge regarding best practice recommendation, design and implement strategies, undertake a follow-up audit, and finally elaborate a multidisciplinary hospital guideline to help us to carry out these kind of situations. This evidence implementation project used the pre-post implementation clinical audit using JBI, PACES, and GRIP, and was conducted for 1 year. And the 3 phases of activity was first establishing a multidisciplinary team and undertaking a baseline audit, designing and implementing strategies through JBI GRIP framework, and at least conducting a follow-up audit and assess the level of compliance. My setting, the setting was the University Infanta Leonor Hospital in Madrid, Spain, which belongs to a public network of hospitals. A multidisciplinary team was created with 6 healthcare professionals from all the departments involved in the project: obstetrics, psychiatry, and pediatrics. And the final sample for the project was 120 high-risk pregnant women. And an intervention was carried out, including the establishment of a midwife consultations that included several visits in 3 periods. And a screening was performed through several validated questionnaires, such as Edinburgh Postnatal Scale. Barriers, strategies, and resources were evaluated and designing following the RIP framework by the multidisciplinary team, which detected 4 major barriers that needed to be addressed. Was the difficulty of coordinating a multidisciplinary team, lack of awareness, the significance of mental well-being in pregnancy and postpartum by both healthcare professional and pregnant women, lack of formal training and knowledge in healthcare workers, and there was no specific consultation for high-risk pregnancy, which midwives provide this kind of health education and mental well-being screening. A baseline audit and a follow-up audit was carried out, and a total of 10 criteria were selected. We don't see the baseline audit in the slides because the baseline audit showed 0% compliance, because the implementation of this implementation project didn't exist before the audit. We start from 0. But after implementing the strategies, there was a significant increase in compliance with all of the criteria. I would like to show you 3 graphs briefly to correspond to the 3 selected topics. This is for antenatal psychosocial, this is for intrapartum care, and this is the final for the postpartum period. And I want also to highlight some outcomes in terms of perinatal mental health, because we were 7 referrals to psychiatry during pregnancy and 2 during postpartum period, so it's an important problem now. And as a conclusion, I would like to say that improving emotional well-being in pregnancy should be a target of clinical practice. More national and international guidelines should be developed for all health professionals are aware of the significance of perinatal mental health. Through a multidisciplinary team, the quality of patients improve and we get better outcomes. And of course, establishing a standardized care based on evidence practice recommendation has proven to be an effective way to improve the quality of patient care. And I would like to say these sentences, I think it's very special because it's the key for a multidisciplinary team. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I only want to say thank you for all the people who help us and support us in this amazing implementation project. So thank you for all of your support. And that's all.
Excellent presentation. Congratulations for this achievement. I believe this project might be easily transferred and translated to other countries. Excellent example, Miriam. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, inviting our colleagues to type the questions, comments. So far, there are several comments which actually are appreciating the projects. Great to see, but you can type also the question. After this presentation by Mariana Zazu, and there is a small change in the program, we will open the panel discussion, so you can type your questions. And Mariana will present the project, which is focused on effective communication and patient safety among nurses in periotherapy setting. And we already see the presentation. So Mariana, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Just a minute. Okay, my project and the Catalin project was effective communication and patient safety among nurses in perioperative settings, a best practice implementation project. There is no conflict of interest in this work. 10% of patients experience adverse events in hospitals, but at least 50% are preventable. The solution of WHO in 2009 was the implement of surgical safety checklist, which can conduct significant reductions in surgical morbidity and mortality. The audit question of implementation project is, are the nurses in perioperative settings compliant with the recommendation of evidence-based practice regarding effective communication and patient safety? The aim of the project is to improve compliance with evidence-based criteria regarding effective communication and patient safety among nurses in the perioperative settings. The specific objectives are to identify the current compliance with the best practice recommendation for effective communication and patient safety, to identify the barriers and the facilitators in improving compliance and the development of strategy for addressing area of non-compliance, and identify the changes in compliance with the evidence-based practice recommendation following the implementation. This evidence implementation project used the JBI evidence implementation framework with 3 phases: the baseline audit, grip and evidence implementation, and the follow-up audit. The project was implemented in Funden Clinical Institute. The implementation team was multidisciplinary, 1 psychologist and 5 nurses. The first audit was completed in first week in October 2020. The sample was between 52 and 24 nurses. The method of data collection were interview with nurses, direct observation, checking the institutional procedures, records in registers, training reports, medical records of patients. The second phase, the implementation was conducted in 3 months between November 2020 and January 2021. The follow-up audit was conducted in first week of February 2021. According to JBI evidence summary, we had 11 audit criteria, but for 2 criteria in results for first phases, baseline audit, 2 criteria we obtain a maximum percentages of compliance, the first and 6th criterion. 3 criteria we obtain percentages over 50. The 7th, 8th, and 10th criterion. At 2 criteria, we obtain 31 percentages, the 9th and 11th criterion. We did not obtain any percentages of compliance with 4 criteria, the 2nd, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th criterion. The barriers identified regarding effective team communication and patient safety in perioperative include inadequate acknowledge and the attitude of nurses, high workload, presence of wards of different floors, COVID-19 pandemic context limiting staff movement between departments, inadequate procedures for using the intraoperative checklist, lack of specific procedures and checklist. When we discuss about effective communication, we refer to the verbal transfer of patient information at all transition points and the movement of staff between departments. Among the strategies used, I can mention educational program in communication, in effective communication, team communication, transfer of patient information, patient safety in perioperative settings, use of the intraoperative checklist and the checklist for the transfer of patient information. And the revision and dissemination of the procedures for the use and completion of the intraoperative checklist for patient safety and the checklist for the transfer patient information. And the organization of the flow preoperative activity and provide the support from the organization management, human resource management, and the management of elective surgery. The follow-up audit in first week of February 2021 had the following results. Improvement to criteria 2, 3, 4, 5, also 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, as regards the compliance of nurses with evidence-based criteria for effective communication and patient safety in the perioperative context. Nurses acknowledge the safety attitude, right and exchange of patient information at all transition points by nurses, surgical procedures for intraoperative communication, briefing, timeout, debriefing, elimination, or non-essential communication. The only criterion that improved by 25% was the verbal exchange of patient information, criterion 4. This criterion may be influenced by the persistent pandemic context, but can be improved given that there is continuous monitoring of communication at all transition points and an additional allocation of human resource. Significantly improving compliance rates with the best practice for most audit criteria demonstrates that the strategies implemented in the project have been effective. The biggest challenge is to maintain the sustainability of the implementation project. This will be achieved by continuous monitoring of practice, performance feedback, regular education, team communication, patient safety, future follow-up audits to assess the maintenance of improvement compliance. In order to determine the success of this implementation project, the impact over time intervention on the rates of surgical events will be evaluated. I want to thank you to everyone involved in this project, and I want to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for the presentation and sharing your project with us. And now is the time we can open the panel discussion. And I see in the QA we have a first question. And so the question is, in average, how long it takes to conduct an audit project? So probably meaning the first, second, third audit, and probably also whole implementation project. So the question for all panelists, so you can share your experience.
So shall I start? In my case, it took probably 1 month when we made an agreement when we can meet together, what are our problems, and even what change we would like to make. So in our department, it took about 1 month. If we are speaking about the preparation of first baseline audit, if it was the question.
Thank you, Andrea. So anyone else from the panelists, it could be Simona, Mariana, Miriam, who would like to share, you can unmute yourself and tell your experience.
For us, it medium 2 weeks for audit project for baseline audit and follow-up audit. maybe 2 weeks, it's okay. But for implementation project in between baseline audit and follow-up audit, maybe it's correct for 6 months. Because it's the time appropriately for implementation best practice evidence. It's okay? Thank you.
Milos, Filipa asked how it takes to evaluate the effectiveness of the intervention. So the period of that you are considering.
So probably Miriam would like to.
Sorry. Yeah, well, in my case, was more exactly one year, because due to the COVID-19 situation. So, but I think I agree with my colleagues, it's more or less 6 months to evaluate and to assess time and effectiveness of the activity and the implementation between the baseline audit and the follow-up audit. I think 6 months is proper time to assess. I think.
Very good. And there is a long question from Isabel Mendez. So maybe Isabel, you can unmute yourself and tell your question. Probably it's better than I'm reading it. And if you can make the question shorter.
Please, Alex, could you please put Isabel Méndez? ¿Puedes pasar a Isabel Méndez con micro? Isabel, I think you can talk now. You have your unmute. You can. Isabel, can you hear us?
Listen to me.
Yes, a little bit low, please.
Okay. Now
okay.
it's okay.
Now it's okay.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you. This is a good opportunity. So related to the colleagues that talk about the perinatal mental health. Mm-hmm. And Miriam, thank you very much for your presentation. I would like to ask you, because this is very, very important. We highlight with our students in the midwifery nursing master degree that related to postpartum depression, this is very, very important. The references to the need to be with these women in the postpartum home visits. But your study highlighted the importance in the perinatal or related to prenatal, considering this continuum between the prenatal and the postpartum health of these women. So what is your consideration related to your study in this perinatal mental health, and also the well-being of these women and their families? What you consider this approach, because in the first communication of our presentations, it was highlighted the communications between our patients and the health cares. So what is what you think about this related to the need of these communications with these women just in the perinatal area, related, of course, specific, not only physical, but this so sensitive, the perinatal mental health.
I hope you answer all your questions. I think it's so important to talk and communicate with the pregnant woman and realize that we have to be aware the significance of the mental, the emotional well-being with them, and talk about them, talk about all these things surrounded perinatal mental health, disorders. We have to introduce this kind of issues, of problems in the consultations or visits or everything.
Yeah.
And it's so important, the relationship between postpartum depression with depression in pregnancy time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
the vast majority of time go together. Start in pregnancy and continue during postpartum. For that, it's so important. Start in pregnancy and continue until postpartum. This is so important, and we need more guidelines in our places, settings, hospitals, healthcare settings that develop these kind of problems, because now we don't have this in our healthcare system. We don't have these kind of things, and we need to put in context and highlight and talk with the patients. This is the most important thing, and talk about anxiety, fears, concerns, and sadness. We have to do that. Sometimes more important than exercise or feeding or other things.
Thank you. Thank you, Miriam. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for interesting discussion. And we can move to other four presentation and very interesting implementation projects as well. And there will be discussion after the panel discussion after this presentation as well. So please prepare your questions and use the Q&A form for this. And it's my pleasure now to invite another colleague from Spain, Joana Ainzante Urbiena Prieto, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly, with a topic focused on enhancing the use of pain assessment at the emergency department. So, Joana, the stage is yours.
Okay. All right, can you see it properly? Okay, cool. Well, my name is Joana, as Miroslav said. I'm a staff nurse working in emergency department in Bilbao's hospital in the north of Spain. And my project is enhancing the use of pain assessment, best practice implementation project. So first of all, just to make it clear, there is no conflict of interest to declare for this project. And now, well, I focus on the pain. I'll develop my ideas throughout the slides, but basically pain is the most common reason to seek care. It can be associated to any diseases, but at the most important for patients coming into the emergency department, the reason is pain. So it is nurses' duty to correctly assess the pain, obviously to relieve patients' suffering. And evaluating pain intensity has been so beneficial for the patients, not just in ED, but in my case, I focus on ED patients, as it can decrease their anxiety, their suffering, and their emotional state. Registered Nurses Association of Ontario recommendation is good practice guidelines. Already mentioned about a specific education that should be included for nurses regarding pain assessment. So I decided to ask myself how we could improve the results on pain assessment. So my audit question was, does the pain assessment tend to cause for emergency department nurses and has the use of existing validating tools comparison in not having that kind of trainings? So the topic I selected was pain assessment in emergency department. It was updated by JBI. It was just a triage, but now it's pain assessment in the whole emergency department. So basically the aim was just to assess the compliance of the correct application of the already validated assessment tools that we were using in our emergency department by giving a specific training, and then obviously there were main objectives. It's just to determine compliance, document appropriately, design implementations. But obviously, the most important bit for all health workers was to improve the care, take the care toward excellence, and improve nurses' knowledge. Well, the methods used, as all my colleagues have mentioned before, is the JBI framework. So I have a post-implementation clinical audit. It took me up to 1 year, just as we have mentioned now on the Q&As because of the COVID situation. And I used PACES and GRIP, as I'm going to explain later on, just to develop strategies. And you can see the dates it took me at the end to develop the project. So establishing the team and undertake the baseline. We were COVID-free by then. So I did it on November 19, but then designing and implementing strategies took me longer, almost a year. So I managed to get the follow-up audit in January this year, just to make enough space between the implementation and the follow-up. The setting and sample, the training was done in the emergency department. Obviously, because the COVID situation, I could not gather professionals. So it was a bit difficult for me to develop the implementation, but I managed to get it. I had to gather 130 and 140 nurses from the emergency department. Because of the restrictions, only 47 of the staff could attend the teaching sessions. The teachings were 1 hour and 15 minutes, just because I set the limitations, where we would discuss about the project. I would show them the baseline audit results so they could reflect on it. I will give them the chance to reflect and see how we could improve the results. And meanwhile, while I couldn't give the teaching sessions, I used posters just to make people start reflecting about pain. And that's the poster is in bilingual, because where I come from, we've got 2 official languages. And the sample and data selection for each audit was selecting randomized 100 admission ED episodes within 30 natural days. So to identify barriers, we used the GRIP, and I identified 3 important barriers. That was nursing staff lack knowledge. It could be because they were just new registered, or they have not been able to understand the scoring scales. Also, nursing not participating in the practice. Obviously, in the emergency department, it is important to attend the patients, so sometimes there's no time for documenting and educating a large number of nurses. As said, before pandemic situation, it was already difficult to gather that many staff. So imagine with the pandemic situation, it was much harder, but we managed to get something done. So here you can see the green lines is November 19, so it's the baseline audit, and the results for the follow-up audit, you can see it in blue, is January this year. So there have been improvement, maybe not as I would like to. I was expecting a little bit more, but any improvement is good for our patient. That's what gets us together in this kind of projects. So you can see there was quite a good improvement, and I was surprised that some of the results for criteria were quite high. So for example, prior to discharge, it was not, it was just 10%, and we managed to get 41%. So there's been an improvement that can be seen on the follow-up audit. So the discussion and the conclusion is like, pain was not barely recorded. It was done, don't get me wrong, it was done, but not registered. So this kind of a specific training will emphasizing in documenting that pain assessment had a positive impact, as shown on the follow-up audit, and the aim of and objectives were achieved. So this will improve the quality of care of our patients. So I love this sentence, is let's replace good for better. We always do as good as we can, but we still can improve those results. And just to finish, I would like to thank everyone involved in this project, the JBI, Czech Republic, all my SPIDER teammates, obviously my hospital, and everyone that has been involved in this project. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Joanna. I see it was a huge, actually, dedication from your side because of COVID-19, and you had to actually cope and teaching instead of 47 altogether, just by 7. So great that you accomplished all of this. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And it's my pleasure now to invite Antonio Manuel Fernandez from Portugal. So Antonio, please share your presentation, and stage is yours. Very good. We can now see your presentation. You can unmute yourself and you can go. Now you switch back to
Sorry.
We don't see it now, Antonio. Now it's going
you
up.
can see it now?
Yes, but can you please make it the
okay.
presentation view?
Okay.
It's okay now.
Okay, thank you. Good morning to everyone. Special regards to Dr. Miroslav and all my spider colleagues. I miss you, so congratulations, and thank you to enjoy me and support me. It's another complimentation to you. Thanks for the opportunity to the organization. Our title of the project is Nasogastric Care and Flushing in Portuguese General Medicine Department, the best practice implementation project. My name is Antonio Manuel Fernandes. I'm one of the members of the project team. This project had no conflicts of interest. A short introduction. Nasogastric feeding, as you know, is a widely used form of nutritional support. Although is considered a safe procedure, is a danger-free intervention. There are several risks and problems. And despite a nasogastric care recommendation, institutional practice do not always reflect best evidence-based practice. This gap was identified by us in the context. This gap which broke us to the issue of implementation, that was what is nasogastric care flushing best practice. To get the answer to this question, we analyzed JBIEU evidence summaries and consult national and international guidelines from various institutions. And what we found is a bundle of 14 criteria related to topics with best practice. 8 nasogastric care best practice criteria and 6 nasogastric flushing best practice criteria. So our objective to this project, the aim and objective is similar to another project, to contribute to promoting evidence-based practice, document the current compliance with the recommendations, to identify barriers and develop and implement strategies to overcome non-conformities, and to improve compliance with the best practice. We follow the JBIEU methodology, the framework that consists basically in audit and feedback. In the phase 1, after established project team, we made the baseline audit in January, February 2020. Then in phase 2, we discussed the result, identify the barriers, and design and implementation strategies to improve practice. And finally, at the end, we conduct the follow-up audit in March, April 2021. The results of baseline audit, as you can see in the following charts, the criteria compliance varied from 0% to 88%. 10 of the 14 criteria were below 15%. The nasogastric position verification by checking the gastric pH below 5.5, and following initial insertion, and flushing with the pulse technique was observed. This criteria present 0%. Only 8% of nurses receive nasogastric care and flushing education in the last 5 years. So after analyze the audit result, we identify several barriers. Here are the top 4. The lack of time for literature critical analysis, nursing staff lack of knowledge, lack of training of nurses to update their knowledge, understanding, and skills regarding various issues, and research barriers, absence of gastric pH strip in the context. So, given these resultant barriers, some of the strategy and the research to overcome the barriers we implement are this one. I only say 2 or 3. Education and training program includes demonstration and some tutorial videos. We produce 3 or 4 charts to clarify nasogastric tube feeding, care and flushing for collective and individual use. Constantly reminders on the screen of the nursing office during the shift change by the members' teams, or systematic reminders and information sharing via WhatsApp implementation group. So there are some of the examples. Produce a small, easy to read and book with relevant citations and respective bibliographics. So here are some of the examples, the intervention we implemented. So as you can see now, in the follow-up audit result, the criteria compliance in general was increased significantly in both bundle of criteria, flushing and nasogastric care. For example, both criteria with an initial level of compliance of 0% and the biggest compliance increase to respectively 19% and 52%. And for example, the criteria C, nurse receive education in the last 5 years increased from 8 to 100%. So to finish, some results of the baseline audit show low compliance levels. Although the results are similar to other projects, some were below our expectation. The strategy implemented to deal with the barriers we consider it contribute significantly to adherence to the best practice. We believe that the theoretical support used, the acquisition of gastric pH strips and the demo tutorial will have contributed to the evolution from 0 to 19%. We are also convinced that the general improvement is due to the integrated plan of educational strategy and the resource because both complementary to each other. To sustain sustainability and keeping improving, we suggest maintaining some strategies, supervision and regular assessment, and we perform a 6-month follow-up audit in the next October. We schedule already. So, in conclusion, we achieve a significant improvement in the nursing management of nasogastric care and flushing. Our plan improves nurses' knowledge, increases compliance in checking initial position with pH content, flushing tube, preventing equipment and feed contamination, and preventing equipment and feed contamination. In the future, more best practice implementation projects related to this topic should be carried out. I would like, in the name myself and the name of all of members teams, to the hospital nurse supervisor, to the Czech Republic JBI Center, to the Portugal Center of Evidence, JBI Center of Excellence, to the Health Science Research Unity, hosted by the Nursing School of Coimbra, but more important, more important, at the general medicine staff that contribute to the implementation project development. Thank you for your attention, and sorry about my nervous state.
Dear Professor Antonio, thank you very much for excellent and clear presentation. Congratulations to achieving the 90% improvement for the follow-up criteria. That's excellent and great to see this. Thank you very much. And now a few Q&As, which we will do after 2 more presentations. So please feel free to type any questions to our speakers. We'll do them after this too. And now it's my pleasure to invite Tereza Verbová, who is our colleague from the Masaryk University in the Czech Republic. And her topic is focused on the development of trustworthy clinical practice guidelines in the Czech Republic and the best practice implementation projects. So Tereza, the stage is yours. We see the presentation not in a presenting mode, so please if you can make the presenting mode, and if you speak we don't hear you, although you have unmuted your microphone. Still we don't hear you.
Now I changed something. Is it better now?
Now we hear you. It's okay. Please switch to the presenting mode.
No?
Now it's okay.
Okay, good, perfect. Hello, everyone. My name is Tereza Verbová, and I'd like to present my topic of best practice implementation project, which is development of trustworthy clinical practice guidelines in the Czech Republic. So why actually this project has been born at all? Well, the situation in different healthcare settings and different healthcare fields is not of the best quality, always and everywhere. So the various levels of provided care could be detected. In the world, or in Europe, but in the worldwide circumstances, there are national bodies which coordinate development and updating of clinical practice guidelines, which are trustworthy, but nothing existed in the Czech Republic. And although there has been detected some history of clinical practice guidelines use, it was very inconsistent. So therefore, the clinical practice guideline project on national level was born, supported by European Union. The main objective of the project was to enhance compliance to the best available practice. And this compliance and best available practice would be supported by valid and trustworthy clinical practice guidelines based on the principles of evidence-based healthcare and GRADE. So the methods of the implementation project followed the JBI Handbook for Evidence Implementation. There was a baseline audit conducted, and actually this baseline audit was a situational analysis conducted before the implementation project started. So it was done retrospectively. Then the barriers were identified, and quite many of them, which you will see in a minute. The strategies to overcome them were mainly educational and dissemination activities. And then there were 2 follow-up audits conducted, one in June 2019, also retrospectively, and then in November 2020, which was when I joined the project. The audit criteria, and this is something slightly different from the other implementation projects, were not provided by JBI or by JBI summary. These audit criteria were established by the implementation team during the course of the project. So they were set up as national methodology guidelines, documents, the clinical practice guidelines themselves, and the number of qualified methodologists. This was the only criterion which was not at the very zero at the very beginning. So I promised you to see a few barriers identified in the implementation of best practice. And here there are the main strategies we used to overcome them. So the most important or the larger ones were the lack of awareness of evidence-based healthcare, lack of methodological knowledge, and also we fought with reluctance to leave the traditional approach to healthcare. Later on, then COVID appeared, which also made the project more difficult. And we also later on found out that the source clinical practice guidelines we used were based on different methodologies. So we also had to overcome this. Here you can see the results of baseline audit and the 2 follow-up audits with prospective criteria. And here it's probably good to point out that you don't see or you can't see percentages, but these are absolute numbers. So you can see we were moving from 0 except for 4 methodologists who were actually at the very initiation of the whole project. But we improved in all the criteria included, which I'm very proud of. This is the website of our project, which could be visited, and the clinical practice guidelines could be read. We definitely achieved a great deal of movement from the 0 stage. There are several methodological guidelines, documents, which are being updated and created other and more ones. There are trustworthy clinical practice guidelines based on principles of great and evidence-based healthcare. And we can also see the change in thinking of several healthcare professionals. However, there are still some challenges. We realize that it's really highly resources demanding process, and there is still persisting resistance in some cases. The biggest aim now and in the future would be sustainability of the whole project and all the activities, which we hope that we'll be able to keep the educational and dissemination activities ongoing. And we also believe that another aim of or goal of the whole project would be to establish a national center which would go on with all these activities so far being part of the project. So I'd like to thank to all participants and all teammates from Spider Project, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Just probably to mention that right now we are having another workshops for our chairmen of medical professional societies and teams for the guideline panel. So it's all continue. And it is my great pleasure to welcome and invite Veronica Coutinho to present her implementation project with the name Prevention of Adverse Events Associated with Medication Administration. So Veronica, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, we hear you. And we see the presentation.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, everyone. A special compliment to the moderator and the fellows' presentations. Congratulations the organizing committee and the opportunity they give us to share our work. My name is Veronica Coutinho. I am a professor at the Nursing School of Coimbra. And besides me, in the execution of this project, other authors have collaborated, namely the nurse Cristina Santos, nurse Catarina, Dr. Catarina, and nurse investigator Daniela Cardoso. So thank you for us. It is entitled Prevention of Adverse Events Associated with Medication Administration, a Best Practice Implementation Project. I have no conflict of interest to declare in this project, and this theme was chosen because we recognize from the head of the service that there is a lack of awareness about the caring and administering intravenous medication, namely chemotherapy. So it is important to mention that this service was changing at the time we implemented the project, and it was a medicine and hematology service. There was a specific team for hematology and another from medicine. However, at the time, it became just hematology and the team became all hematology. So for this reason, it was urgent in implementing this project. So we know nurses have a unique role and responsibility in medication administration, in that they are frequently the final person to check to see the medication is correctly prescribed and dispensed before administration. And nurses play an essential role in drug reconciliation, preparation, and administration, teaching clients about medication and monitoring, evaluation, and documenting drug response. So my audit question is, what is the best practice of nurses in administering medication to patients admitted to a hematology service regarding the prevention of adverse events? And the purpose of the implementation project was ensure that the administration of medication to patients admitted to a hematology service was carried out according to the best practice in order to prevent adverse events. To achieve these objectives methodologically, we have completed 3 phases. The first phase is stakeholder engagement and baseline audit. The second phase is design and implementation of strategies to improve practice. And the third, follow-up audit post-implementation of change strategy in March this year. So the 10 audit criteria we used were the first, the patient his ID is checked prior to administration, the right medication is checked, the right dosage is checked, is so for you consistent. The time of administration is in line, and the route of administration is in line with the prescribed route. The expiry date of medication is checked before the 6th topic. And the 7th topic, the nurse who prepares the medication administers the medication to the patient. The 8th, the date and time the medication was administered in the comments. And the 9th, supporting documentation is complete. And 10, finally, residents' refusal of medication is documented. So this topic 10 was not evaluated because they are patients undergoing chemotherapy. They are mostly hospitalized for chemotherapy. They do not refuse. So a baseline audit on prevention of adverse events associated with medication administration using the JBI practical application on clinical evidence system was undertaken. In the audit, it was identified that in one of the criteria, none of the nurse complete with the 6 criteria, the expiry date of medication is checked before us. In criteria 7, the nurse who prepares the medication administers the medication to the patient, a large percentage of nurses also did not comply either. Based on the results on the baseline audit, we identified the barriers to the implementation of best practice, as well as we designed and implemented a strategy towards the JBI, getting research into practice framework in And in the post-implementation of the strategy, a re-audit was undertaken using the same approach of the basic audit. So comparing the results, despite not being directly related to nursing, but there was a significant improvement. It should also be noted that of the 24.43%, that is of the 6 nurses who did not comply, 3 registered that they did not comply because there were 3 chemotherapies and the last one would no longer be on their shift and left registered. We believe that this improvement was due to all the implemented strategies, such as in meetings with nurses accepted of the strategies they suggest, preparation of the double check registration documents, shift change reminders, and warnings. In the future, to improve and sustain the improvements made, it is necessary to maintain interdisciplinary communication and keep nurses motivated to notify non-conformities as well as to carry out follow-up cycles. So during this journey, what's the achievements and what's the challenge? The achievements with improvement of nursing care and medication administration, compliance with nursing records, medicines arrive with the preparation time and the expiration dates, most pharmaceutical products reach service on time, and the challenge in time of pandemic, being able to implement the project was the biggest challenge. So to the motivated team, meetings with the person in charge of pharmacy showing evidence and results of the first audit, negotiate with the pharmacy at the same time that they had to implement the vaccination, and keep working with this team to improve even more. So the conclusion, this implementation project was completed with success, achieving a strong improvement of implementation of the evidence-based guidelines concerning the prevention of adverse events associated with medication administration and hematology service in the Hospital of Portugal. In the future, more best practice projects should be made of these topics to sustain the implementation of the evidence-based methods to improve health outcomes with a positive impact in patient safety, costs, and health systems too. The authors would like to acknowledge the support provided by Health Science Research Unit Nursing, hosted by the Nursing School of Coimbra. Additionally, we would like to greatly acknowledge the support of all the staff of the hematology department that contribute to the development of this implementation project and the JBIEU Spider project. Thank you very much. This is our reference, and thank you very much for your attention.
Excellent. Thank you, Veronica, very much. Great to having you. Thank you for sharing your successful implementation project with us. And I think now we can open the panel discussion. We have a few Q&As. The first, I've seen the 2 Q&As were and they just disappeared now, but I see them, okay. They were for Antonio. And while Antonio would respond them, I read them. The other colleagues then can still type your questions. So Antonio, the question for you was a question about from Judith Carrier, saying excellent results, and if you got any negative responses to the implementation, or was it positively received by all?
Thank you for the question. I already responded by text, but I can repeat. The reception was very positive. We analyzed before if there were conditions and to implement the project and understand if this is a issue, if the people are not available. It wasn't a barrier to realize the project. We found a very positive reception, a very proactive attitude. We found an enormous disposition for SAGE and involvement. Isn't a problem.
Very good. And there is a second question to you, Antonio, actually. So I don't know if you can read it, but it's from Filipa Baptista asking and also saying very nice strategies. And how did you put the procedure on the screen of the computer in the nursing station?
It's not difficult. All strategy to be implemented were discussed, and not only from the ideas of the members, the project members, but also from all the staff. This not only made it easier, but made it more creative and diverse. So in the screen reminders in the screen of the nursing office, and also flowcharts visualizations was not constant, but occasionally, and the team members made these 3 or 4 times a week when they understand that there are opportunity to make this.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Antonio. There are no more questions so far. However, I have questions to the rest of our speakers. And my question to Joanna, Teresa, Veronica would be, what was if you can tell, what was the biggest barrier you had within the implementation project, and what was the best strategy which helped you actually to overcome this barrier? If you can share it with us. So any one of you can start, please.
Mm-hmm.
Joanna?
Well, as said, throughout the group, I detected 3 barriers, but the one not expected was the COVID. And I think all of us have been affected by that. All of us have been limited in a way. So that was so difficult, and the situation was changing week by week. So whatever you plan this week, it would change the week after. So it's been quite difficult to, in my case, to set the teaching sessions, because the restrictions of how many people could attend, how long would the teaching sessions be long. So I struggled a lot, but I managed to get it done thanks to my teaching department, my ward manager. We managed to gather at least almost 50% of the staff. So yeah, it was difficult, but at the end you can get, and as I said before, any minimum improvement is an improvement. So with the sustainability, we can carry on doing this kind of audits, so it works, and hopefully this pandemic situation will end up and we can catch up with all the things that we've left on our back.
Excellent answer. Thank you very much. Next could be Teresa or Veronica.
Okay, I can go ahead. Well, for me, I think the biggest barrier was reluctance of some of the participants of the teams who were to develop clinical practice guidelines to leave their traditional approach to healthcare and traditional thinking of how any kind of guidelines should look like. And with some members of the team, I really enjoyed working, because we could see our mutual progress and how we work together, experts in different fields working together and moving on. And with some members or participants, let's say, of the project, I don't think we have actually overcome it in certain cases completely. So yeah, but we'll keep on fighting till the end.
Very good, Teresa. And by the original approach, what do you mean by it? Does it have any acronym?
Sorry?
By the original approach to guideline development, anything specific you have on mind?
Well, yes, I do. I'm not sure if it's an original approach, but the good old man sitting around the table has been present. Yes.
The box-up method, which obviously is also not diverse, because speaking about the good old boys who sit around the tables, and this is what we try to overcome by this approach. Okay, thank you, Teresa and Veronica.
Okay, for me, the big barrier was the pandemic. Not being able to be in the service, and the strategy was really communication with the entire team, and I have a good relationship and with them, and make them participate in everything. I think it's the best strategy for us.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Veronica. And we still, Antonio, if you like to add anything as a last comment.
It was sorry, it was the same. The problems are similar, but we have one. I have one curiosity. In the final assessment we made collectively after the follow-up audit, the staff evaluate the integrated plan of the interventions, the integrated plan of interventions. But curiously, they highlighted. They say it was the shared discussion and reminders with the WhatsApp implementation group. They say it was easy to assess, constantly present, personal. It was curious. We share some tutorials with this strategy. So what can I say? This is a curiosity.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Milos. I have a question for Joanna, but maybe it's for the rest also. I was curiosity about sustainability, because you have get all of you a lot of achievement. And are you thinking about expanding this to other units? So you use the material you have already done and so on. Have you planned that?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Lara. Yeah, I've been discussing it with my ward manager and the teaching department. There are other, well, my hospital is done in different buildings, and each building is a specialty. So some other buildings have already started some practice guidelines about pain. So there is a plan that from now into 2 years or so all together, so we've got the same kind of guidelines and protocols. Obviously, each one of the wards will have their specific protocols, but to have a common one. So yeah, we are trying to align all those projects also with the BPSOs, and we are trying to make it work, like taking different kind of protocols or guidelines and get it together, so any information get lost on the way. Because if we've got so many different kind of information and protocols, people tend to not to know what's going on, just because we tend to rotate from different units. So that's the plan, just to get one formal guidelines, so everyone can actually work the same way, depending on depending on where you're working on.
Yes, this is because it's too specific, but I see that in the previous presentation, this could be expanded to other units. So it's congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
Okay, excellent, very good. Thank you all for this panel discussion and sharing your experience. And now we move in the program to very focused and sharp presentations. They will be all for 4 minutes, and they will be presented by our colleagues Catherine, Ephraim, and Beverly. And the first will be Catherine Smith with the topic Enhancing the Practice of Clinical Supervision within Primary and Community Care. Experience from Wales. So Catherine, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Miroslav. Okay, so my name's Catherine Smith. I'm a lecturer in Cardiff University, and my background is district nursing in primary and community care, and my topic was on enhancing clinical supervision within primary and community care. So just to disclose that there's no conflict of interest for this project. So just a little bit of an introduction. We all know that it's vitally important to provide support, clinical and emotional support to our healthcare workers, therefore clinical supervision can provide that opportunity in order to be developed, to be listened, and to provide that working relationship. And we know from research that clinical supervision helps develop resilience and therefore can contribute to quality of care, so it's vitally important to utilise. But it's still not widely used within healthcare, and specifically not within primary care. So the aims of the project was to look at assessing compliance against evidence-based criteria regarding the use of clinical supervision, and there were 5 objectives there that we looked at, that we tried to look at concordance, looking at the barriers and the facilitators, the knowledge around evidence-based practice and clinical supervision, and then the outcomes of this within primary care. So the methods then that we used were broken down into 3 phases using the JBI implementation framework. So phase 1 looked at the baseline audit around engaging stakeholders and identifying the need of improvement to clinical supervision. Phase 2 then we looked at GRIP, where we needed to address the audit results, and the strategies were identified and put in place, which consisted of online educational sessions, development of documentation and a handbook, regular set meetings with the project team, and the delivery of clinical supervision sessions online, and then the recording of those clinical supervision sessions. And then phase 3 was the post-implementation audit, using the same evidence-based standards and sample size within the same team to re-audit. So the set and sample, as you can see here, we followed an audit criteria. I used 1 district nursing team in a highly populated area in South Wales that had a total of 287 patients on their caseload, and 16 participants were included within the implementation project. So the results then, the baseline audit was conducted in person in January 2020, and it can clearly be seen the discrepancies between the compliance of the criterions. All criterions had a score of lower than 40% compliance, so there was room for improvement. Phase 2 then identified 3 main barriers to the project: communication, obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, and documentation. And then as a project team, we implemented strategies and resources to overcome that. I just wanted to state that the COVID-19 pandemic did initiate a barrier firstly, but it did assist with the project in the end, because the clinical supervision sessions were seen to support healthcare workers through this time. It provided time for them to listen and to discuss issues with their colleagues. The follow-up audit then, as you can see, we had significant improvements for all criterions. They were criterion 5 increased from 0 to 88%, and similar with 2, 3 and 4 rising from 20% to 75%. So we've seen a really significant improvement in the use of clinical supervision within the team. So just as a little discussion to say that it's narrowed the gap around the stigma around complexity of clinical supervision and its benefits within primary care. And there's been little research conducted on clinical supervision in primary care alone due to the complex nature of the care that we provide. But we're hoping to take that forward and expand that out into surrounding teams within the area, and do a re-audit in December 2021 to look for further compliance and continuation with clinical supervision, and to convert the educational sessions online for people to be able to access at their own need. And just some acknowledgement to say thank you to all that were involved, especially JBI Spider Project, Cardiff University, and the team members within the team. And obviously our Spider teammates as well. This has been a brilliant process, and their support has been great. Thank you very much.
Thank you much, Catherine. Thank you for sharing this very successful implementation project. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And as in the previous, there will be panel discussion after all 3 presentations. And now I invite Raluca Alexandra Ephraim from the Romanian JBI Center. So Raluca, the stage is yours.
Mute. No, thank you very much. So it's okay.
Yes, it's okay.
Okay. My name is Raluca, and my project title it's about communication as an important chain between healthcare providers in a medical laboratory. The project was registered as a quality improvement activity within the laboratory and therefore did not require ethical approval. Communication, as we all know, is the basis of all interpersonal actions, and it's a fundamental clinical skill that, if performed efficiently, facilitates the establishment of a relationship of trust between the medical staff and the patient, a truly therapeutic alliance. This project aimed to conduct a clinical audit to evaluate compliance with best practice in general principle of communication and the implementation of evidence-based practice recommended by JBI. As the main objective, in order to promote the importance of training, all members of the healthcare team should receive training for communication skill improvement, teamwork, and conflict resolution. As the main audit questions were members of the healthcare team receive communication skill trainings. When situation other than standard one appears, the superior is announced in order to obtain the confirmation of the use of the optimal solution. The healthcare team has dedicated time for team debriefings. The method used was the JBI implementation framework using the JBI handbook. A baseline audit involved 30 healthcare professionals, including registered nurses, laboratory assistants, biochemists, and specialist doctors from different departments of the same laboratory. Data for clinical audits were collected using direct observation of the healthcare team during the 8-hour shifts and completed by confidential questionnaire. The baseline audit was followed by implementations of strategies to solve identified barriers. Then organizing a workshop focused on deepening communication skill and the follow-up audit. The baseline audit was conducted in November 2020. Consists of direct observation of the laboratory staff. The end of the audit consisted in completing a questionnaire containing specific questions to the audit credential to support the observation made. The baseline compliance with best practice for audit criteria revealed us that only a part of those involved in the study benefit from training communication skill, which leads to a destabilization of opinions between the team members. In the phase 2, the project lead and the key stakeholder follow grip process. The implementation process was completed within 1 month after baseline audit. Taking into account the current context, the implementation of the communication improvement strategy took place online via Zoom meetings in which all 30 team members participate in training session organized in 3 consecutive days with a duration of 90 minutes per session. The main 5 barriers identified was time constraint, the misunderstood information, the fear of being judged, embarrassment, and anxiety. Communication is hampered by hierarchical barriers. The follow-up audit took place in March 2021. Taking into account the compliance charts after each study phase, we can observe that the audit criteria number 2 and 3 remain the same. Regarding criteria number 1 shows that 100% of the participants in this study sustained that they received communication skills training. Audit criteria number 4 present an increase of the efficiency of the communication process between the team members. So there was an individual evolution of each member who is part of the study team. This evolution was materialized in the efficiency of the production process for the benefit of the patient. The communication improvement process will continue even after the end of the project because the team noticed on their own the importance of high-level communication, respect for the rules, and mutual respect between the team members. So in conclusion, communication is the cornerstone of healthcare. Effective communication is not only critical to meeting patient needs and providing safe, high quality and patient-centered care, it is necessary to how we manage healthcare delivery. The healthcare team is now more focused on interpersonal communication, and this improves their cooperation, and they become clear on their specific tasks within their team. So I like to acknowledge the Joanna Briggs Institute for providing support and training, especially to Itka and Miloslav, as well as those who participate in the implementation of the project. And last but not least, the Order of Nurses Bucharest Branch Research Unit, who offered support and shared its experience. And none of the less, my spider team, who is awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raluca. Excellent presentation with excellent time coping, all very clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last but not least speaker is from Wales, and it's Beverly Johnson with the topic multidisciplinary world rounds in Malawi. So, Beverly, the stage is yours. Beverly, are you with us? Hopefully you don't have any...
I am here. I am here. I'm just trying to manage my technical challenges. Bear with.
Okay, very glad to not lost you in the metrics. Okay, now we see your presentation and we see you. Excellent. The stage is yours.
Brilliant. So thank you for inviting me today. I'm Bev Johnson from Cardiff University, and my project was based in Malawi. So the title was basically Enhancing Evidence-Based Clinical Fellowship Programme. Sorry, that's the programme that we're doing. And the title was Multidisciplinary Ward Rounds. There are no conflicts of interest in this project whatsoever. So multidisciplinary ward rounds are common practice to review patient progress and plan future care. Good multidisciplinary work enables communication and patient care planning to be shared and discussed, and best practice suggests that some structure would be of value. So this work took place in Malawi, which is a middle-income country where the provision of healthcare is limited. And with the benefit of an Erasmus grant, some Cardiff Uni staff worked with staff at KCN at the University of Malawi to develop a practice development unit in one of their major public hospitals. And the aim of this was to improve patient-centred, evidence-based, multidisciplinary care to patients on a male medical ward, which was overcrowded, underfunded, and that took all the male medical patients from that geographical area. So the objectives were to improve multidisciplinary ward rounds in that ward in Malawi, with the aims to determine current practice and compare against evidence-based criteria to identify barriers and facilitators and to improve knowledge and adherence. We followed the JBI methodology framework with the 3 phases. Prior to the baseline audit, we set up a stakeholder group to identify need and areas of improvement. And the baseline audit was conducted prior to ethical approval. Baseline audit indicated that 33% criteria was met in terms of senior nurses being involved in the ward rounds, but with some of the other criteria, it wasn't met at all. And that's members of the ward round are involved in a pre-round briefing, post-round briefing, designated area away from the bedside to allow discussion, local induction, and standardized structure. So they weren't hitting the benchmarks on a number of criteria. So using JBI methodology, getting research into practice, we resulted on these results and we implemented some strategies. We held stakeholder meetings, we developed evidence-based practice protocols. We recognised that there needed to be change and support to change culture, and also that we needed to modify the original protocol in order for that to work within the culture and setting of Malawi. There was a recognition that the stakeholder group, that we needed transformational leadership that focused on culture rather than the previous form of leadership that was led by reward and punishment. There was a local implementation team established in Malawi, and that really needed to happen in the light of the pandemic because we couldn't go out there and support them. And so sustaining the momentum of change has been a huge challenge. We've yet to complete the follow-up audit. We were hoping to do it in June this month, but it's unlikely that we're going to do that now. And we're hoping to do it maybe next month, but there are still some challenges. This is the dream team in Malawi. That's Diane Watkins and Judith Carrier in front of the Liverpool Malawi setting. And that's me doing my best to enthuse and encourage people. So we've seen improvement in nurses attending the ward round. We've seen improvement in that communication tools are being used, but the medical staff are yet to be on board, and that's one of our biggest stumbling blocks. So we're hoping to get them on board now, because we really need to change the way that they structure their ward rounds. We'll review the results, but I do anticipate that there'll be improvements of all areas except that related to privacy because of the overcrowded nature of the ward. Implementing any change and evidence-based practice in Malawi is complex. It's compounded by the pandemic. Culture, environment, resources, and hierarchy, traditional hierarchy, have all presented challenges, and adaptations to the guidelines that we would be able to implement quite easily in the UK have been needed to be made. So the work's not completed, but with commitment from the academic and clinical team in Malawi, there's effort being undertaken to meet the best practice guidelines. And I'd like to thank the JBI Spider Project, KCN, the General Hospital, the team at Cardiff, and everyone in my Spider family. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Beverly. I'm very much looking forward to see while you complete the project, and I see that even the pandemic can't stop you in it, which is excellent effort there. So that's really great. So we got one question, which I think was in the meantime answered by Raluca. However, Raluca, maybe you can answer it for all other colleagues. And in the meantime, all other attendees, please, if you have questions to our speakers, type them into Q&A, and we'll be happy to answer those. So Raluca, if you can bring this up.
Yes, thank you for your question, Helena. You asked me if how did I do the audit team debriefings. The team briefings were observed without the knowledge of the team, because I wanted to have a natural view and note where can the healthcare team can be improved. Due to my project that I implemented in different departments, so different departments, different persons, different personalities. I have 10 years in this team, in this whole healthcare team, and I know my persons. So I had to observe them and note based on the audit criteria where can I improve, and where can I give them the best advices, so that the communication and the feeling of the belonging in the healthcare team is very important. So they understood, and they will keep going to understand, because I'll want to do a lot of workshops based on the communications.
Excellent. Thank you. And I would have a question to all our panelists, and probably from our attendees who are listening to us. They might be interested in probably what would you recommend? You know, if someone would like to start with the implementation project, following it. So what would you recommend then? What would be the most important what you can recommend based on your experience with the developing the implementation projects?
I can answer that. I think definitely jump into something that you're really interested in and really feel passionate about, because your passion drives you, and the barriers then that are associated with your project, you strive to overcome.
Thank you. Beverly?
I think there's a couple of pieces of advice. And firstly, I would suggest that get to know the culture and the nuances of the culture, whether it's in the UK or overseas, because actually, although we've had COVID, that hasn't been our biggest barrier. The biggest barrier has been the culture of hierarchy and culture of jealousy within Malawi that has meant that some of the changes that we thought were really straightforward have actually proven to be really challenging. So the first thing is culture, but also is to start it with a commitment that you're not going to give up, because there will always be stumbling blocks in the way. And maybe we can't achieve everything that we want to achieve, but some improvement, and I think I'm quoting Joanna now, some improvement is improvement. And if we can make that difference, then it's worth doing. And so never give up and have that tenacity and resilience to take the knocks.
Thank you, Beverly. Teresa would like to come. All other panelists are invited to answer if they would like to.
I would just sign up all that just been said, and I would add, make your dream team. And if you have great colleagues around you that would support you and help you, and I was privileged, so I can sign this up, and it's just, yeah, make sure you have great people around you and it'll go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, Teresa, for these words. And we see that the collaboration and the teamwork, that's very, very important when we speak about the implementation in practice. Yeah, of course, we can't do it alone, and that is great to have a support from the team. All right, so is there any other questions from our colleagues? I'm just checking the chat.
I have a question for Raluca. I was very interested in your communication interventions, because this is a very cross topic that could help in other areas. Could you tell us about a little more how is developed this intervention? How do you develop that communication? The content come from evidence. How was developed this communication intervention? The training part.
The training part was developed based on the baseline audit facts. So I talked with a specialist trainee in communication skills, showed them the results, and then put down all the issues that we could point them out, and we approached the healthcare team friendly. We didn't want them to approach like basic or procedural or I don't know, things like just read. We implemented a friendly workshop. We implemented a constructive one. We managed to create the main chain of the communication between the healthcare team, the assistants, the biologists, the medical, because we often forget that we depend one on another to do a great job. And this was the main idea of the workshop.
Mm-hmm. It takes one day, or how you do it?
Due to the COVID situation, we had to do it 90-minute session in 3 days. If we could manage to gather all the people, it would be 6 hour or maybe 8 hour one day with breaks, a workshop. But I couldn't do it anyway.
Yes, I think that training has been one of the most affected part of all the projects, yes. And you have to get new strategies. But I think that we have also learned to do it more effectively. So even though maybe we can use some strategies that we can learn from the future.
Yeah, very good. I will have a question to Catherine. Catherine, I've seen that actually within your 2 of 5 of your criterions, you achieved 100% compliance. Congratulations to it. That's amazing. And in one, actually, it was from 0 to 88%. So can you share with us what was it exactly and how you achieved this one?
There was no existing records within the team of clinical supervision being done. So to implement that and to get compliance was to develop a template, a documentation template, in order for when clinical supervision sessions were taking place, that they could record a plan, what they wanted out of it, and when they would next like to meet, in order to get some plan of work really through the different sessions that they were having. But there was no health board records available, so we as a project team developed one, so that's how we got that big rise in percentage.
Okay, very good, thank you very much. And Beverly, regarding your project in Malawi, I mean, how was it? Have you been trying? Probably yes. So how was it trying to make it online? And I can understand that that's probably, you know, all of the online switching probably was not completely deliverable, maybe, you know, within this. Or so what was the experience trying probably to do online?
Doing it, we were lucky because we had a couple of visits to Malawi before COVID struck. Doing it online was challenging because of internet issues overseas. But the team that I have here, well, they're not my team, but Judith and Diane Watkins have been really, really helpful and very much leading this. But doing it online has been challenging. But the team, we've got an implementation team in Malawi who are following our guidance, are kind of doing what they can. So we're having monthly meetings with them to see how the implementation is going. And that seems to be fine, although we're just faced with the technical problems of people coming in and going out and not being able to hear. And of course, it hasn't been the same as face-to-face implementation and face-to-face support. But I think the monthly meetings has ensured that we keep it on track, and we've got the use of a Gantt chart as well. So in that monthly meetings, we go back and we revisit the Gantt chart to double check where we're at. And the team in Malawi are writing implementation reports so that we're keeping abreast of how they're doing and some of the challenges that they're facing. So okay, but not the same, I would say.
Okay, very good. Thank you for sharing this with us, because that's I can imagine that this is the huge challenge which brought the COVID-19. I mean, challenging in all projects, but in yours, I think that's the biggest one. Well, okay, I think I can say in the end that it was a great pleasure today to see all the progress and all the projects, and I am proud of you, all of you who actually achieved this accomplishment. So thank you very much for all your participation, dedication to the project, and your excellent presentations today, which were all in the time. So and all very well prepared. And there is a lot of nice feedback actually I'm reading from the colleagues, and I wish all attendees to see the panelists chat as our colleagues were supporting each other during the whole presentation sessions. And they did it also when we actually held the face-to-face training. So this is probably the take-home message from us regarding the JBI clinical fellowship program, that actually developing this training internationally with international colleagues. There are the huge, let's say, the huge benefits you can get from the international collaboration and the diversity of participants coming from different backgrounds and different settings, and sharing the culture nuances and differences. So I think this is one of the great additions which we haven't expected when we were writing the project, that we will actually see them. So thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, our colleagues from Spanish JBI Center, who organized this multiplier event and prepared all of this. So thank you all.
Thank you, Milos, for sharing this, and great applause to all of the presenters. The speaker has been a very interesting session. Just I add some logistic information. We will have a break now until 1 p.m. in Spain. During this time, you have a break to have lunch, but we encourage you also to visit the posters from Spider colleagues and JBI colleagues. You could rate them if you are interested in. And if there is any question related to the posters, we maintain this room open, and you can write in the chats. So if there are any questions, so presenters could answer it. And I encourage you also to see our closing conference about implementation, from roadmap, from systematic review to implementation, with Margaret Harrison. So thank you, all of you. It has been a pleasure to see all of you. It is a pity that it was virtual, but I think it's worked very well. So thank you.